Hi, welcome back to Cosmic Duty. My name is Ethan. Today, we're going to be talking about utilitarianism, its flaws, and the monster behind it all. What is utilitarianism? Utilitarianism is an ethical theory that says that the morally right action is the one that produces the most overall good. The core idea is that the consequences of an action determine whether or not it is wrong. If an action increases overall well-being more than the alternatives, a utilitarian would consider that the best choice. And there are many famous examples of this, such as the trolley problem, which gives you the option of pulling a lever and only killing one person, or letting the train continue as it is and killing 3 people. Most people, even those who are not utilitarians, would argue that the lowest number of damage caused is the best option. Another famous example of this is the drowning kid hypothetical. It's where, let's say you're walking past the lake and you're in your best business clothes, like you really got expensive stuff on you, and you see a kid drowning in a lake. You would go in and save that kid, even though he's going to ruin your suit. The value of your suit does not match the value of the child's life. So it would be taking some amount of damage for a greater good. It's essentially to sum up, utilitarianism is basically choosing the lesser of two evils, or what option or what action would create the most amount of good and the least amount of harm. And now you may be thinking to yourself, why is that wrong? What is the problem with that? Because on its face, it's a very good idea. It seeks to lower the impact of bad and increase the good. So what's the problem with that? Well, the problem lies within the logic itself. Just for a moment, think of all the countless scenarios that can take place when the majority decides what is moral and what benefits the majority is morality. I made an example on this week's podcast with my buddy Jackson talking about utilitarianism, where I said utilitarianism is moral democracy. It is whatever benefits the most amount of people becomes moral law. Under utilitarianism, you can take any atrocity throughout history, any great human rights violation, and justify it with utilitarianism by framing it as this action will benefit the most amount of people, even though it causes X amount of suffering. In this logic, this flaw in utilitarianism is where the monster comes in. The utilitarian monster is the idea that, imagine there's a monster that experiences 10,000 times the joy that any human experiences. Let's say an average human eats a slice of pizza and experiences 10 units of pleasure from it. Imagine there's a monster that eats a pizza and experiences 10,000 units of pleasure, or 100,000 units of pleasure. Under the utilitarian framework, it then becomes the absolute moral good to give everything to this monster, to feed it the most amount of food, the most amount of money, the most amount of pleasure, whatever the case. But if humanity took utilitarianism to its absolute maximum, to where it was an axiom in the universe, then it would be humanity's moral good to pleasure this monster. And you might be saying, why does this matter? Why does it matter when utilitarianism is taken to its absolute logical absurdity? It's because often throughout history, and even within utilitarianism itself, is the problem with it is that you can view yourself as the monster. And throughout history, people have viewed themselves as the monster, as the thing that will get most pleasure from this action. And if you view yourself as the monster, and if you will get more pleasure from this action, then the person will perceive harm. Even regardless of them perceiving harm, you can become what is morally good. It relies on what is morally good to what you feel in your pleasure. And there's a very crass example to this that I haven't found a retort to or a logical hole in. And this is definitely a content warning for this example. It's very, very crass. Let me just get that out of the way. Saying that utilitarianism has no moral problem with gang assault. Because think about it. The only person that receives any amount of harm is one person. And there are many people that are gaining pleasure or benefiting, you could say. I don't think they're benefiting, but you could say that They're receiving pleasure from this thing. So under the utilitarian framework of accepting some amount of harm for more pleasure and valuing people receiving pleasure, what retort does utilitarianism have against that? And like, it can't even come at it from like a soul kind of view, because utilitarianism is an anti-religious idea. Most people that are utilitarian are not religious, so they cannot make the claim that in that action of the gang, that the doers are doing harm to themselves, so there is no real benefit. They cannot make the argument for they're not religious, so there is no retort. So that, to me, is the main problem with utilitarianism, is that you can be the monster and it doesn't matter. If anything, utilitarianism supports you being the monster. You could apply that to any atrocity, any human rights violation throughout history and say, well, 1940s Nazi Germany, those people received more pleasure than the people that they killed. It doesn't matter. There is no retort in utilitarianism. Another major way utilitarianism is faulty is that it clashes with Christian ethics. Christian ethics says that there is an objective moral good at all times throughout history. It's written into the code of the universe that there is an objective moral good. Utilitarianism doesn't believe in objective moral goods. In utilitarianism, one action can be good or bad depending on who it's done to, when it's done, how it's done. It's all over the place. And there's also the biblical idea of Jesus leaving the herd and leaving the 99 to save the one sheep, to save the one lost soul. And while being a nice idea and showing the character of Jesus, this also sets a value to the human soul and salvation, is that it's infinitely valuable. It is inherently valuable. Human life is inherently valuable, and utilitarianism doesn't believe that. It will sacrifice human life for pleasure. It also clashes with the idea of Christian suffering. Under Christianity, suffering is not necessarily a bad thing. Suffering can lead to many goods. It can make you a better person. It can grow you further. It can test your obedience. There are many different purposes and uses of suffering, and you see that all throughout the Bible. God makes people suffer all the time to teach them a lesson, to show them something. Under utilitarianism, that's a morally reprehensible idea, because under utilitarianism values the pleasure now, while Christianity values the virtue and salvation later. So I think the main conclusion of this video and the main takeaway is that utilitarianism is an idea that not only does not work in absurdity, but also not pragmatically, because it can be used to justify many wrongdoings and atrocities, and even it itself is not a grounded and objective enough moral system. One day, utilitarianism can justify one action, and then the next day the action no longer becomes justified. So that's why I think it is a dangerous value system to hold, and why you see most modern philosophers abandon maximalist utilitarianism. Alright everybody, thank you for watching. This is the end of the video. Hope you subscribe, hope you enjoyed. I really like making this one. I kind of did something different with the Zelda music. I think it adds a nice vibe to the video. But yeah, tell me if you disagree, tell me if you think my analogy of the gang, is stupid. Please comment, like, subscribe, and if you watch all the way to the end, put in the comments that you watched all the way to the end. But yeah, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching.